let me just set the scene because there are a number of you here tonight that I recognise, and all have had sort of parts in different stages of John's life, or have got to know him through different stages. So I thought I'd just give you a picture of what was happening not far from this building in the early 60s. And good heavens, the sun's come out. What was it we used to say in the beatnik days? Bloody sun's out again. And just to paint a picture of the scene, just across the road, there's a little cafe. It's a hamburger restaurant now called Lars. It used to be called the Picnic Box. In the Picnic Box there was a gentleman who called, or a fairly young man then, young lad, as we all were, me younger than the rest, called Ian J. Todd, who used to serve me my coffee from a coffee machine, espresso machine. The Picnic Box was run by a gentleman called Mike O'Neill, who was former army officer, and Major O'Neill. And he bought this wonderful espresso coffee machine and then realised that it took considerable skill to operate it, and found Ian Todd, who'd been introduced to St.Ives by his wife, who'd been an evacuee down here. So we had Ian in the 63 in the Picnic Box. Here at the Arts Club things were pretty much as you see them now, with a lot less electronics and older chairs, but otherwise this place hasn't changed very much. Ian Todd decided, well, he and his friend John Wood decided to buy the Can House in Batalic, and I knew that this was going to happen. Meanwhile, up in Truro, I was a schoolboy who just managed to persuade the staff to let me found a rock climbing club, and we had permission to go out for six weekend meets a year, and we used to climb about 2 miles away from the Can House Batalic at the Can House Bostigran, which was the climbers' hub. And as 16-year-olds, there were things that 15, 16-year-olds, there were things that we were allowed to do in Penwith that we couldn't get away with anywhere else. We used to drink in the German's Head. Wonderful landlord there, who was the meanest landlord you've ever come across, Jimmy Goodman. And from Jimmy I learnt that a bad landlord really knows how to protect his pub. I could ramble on, but I'm just trying to set the scene. So while I was busily setting up the Truro School Rock Climbing Club, a school friend of mine in my same year was very busy getting into music via skiffle and via early rock and roll, and that was a chap called Roger Taylor. So I was busy looking after climbing, he was busy building up a future in rock and roll. And all of these elements at some time or another moved through the folk scene. Roger's first girlfriend, is it Jill Johnston? Jill Johnston, and her sisters, and that was J-Folk, the J-Folk, yeah. Roger, I think, occasionally used to turn up and do a little bit of coming with her on the sea. So anyway, in early part of 1964, Ian Todd with his friend John Wood did this remarkable thing. They bought the Can House at Batalic, and it was basically to live in, but it was too big. And I thought, what can we do with the spare space? Ian, who had his coffee bar experience came from Derby, where he moved down from, and the scene in the coffee bars then was very much jazz. And he thought initially that when he threw the Can House open, it was going to be a jazz club. That was the idea. That didn't seem to work out on the first night he opened it, because all sorts of people turned up. Don't know whether you did, John, on the first night.
No, I didn't know about that.
All sorts of people turned up to answer the call, and they tended to be folk, country and western, all sort of skiffle, everything but jazz. So at that point Ian, I think, decided we'd better try and turn this into a cabaret club, and from there it evolved into a folk club. And at that folk club, turning up early in the evening, this is the gentleman that first took my eye, one of the early residents. The first resident was a gentleman who can't be here tonight, who wanted to be, called Des Hannigan. And Des had basically done a song or two in his Scottish brogue in Jonathan Coudrell's folk club in Fish Street, and Jonathan had said, "Oh, I don't know about that, you better try this place together." But John had to come from somewhere. You know, I sat there listening to songs, and you might have heard several tonight that Phil has been playing.
You want to cue the fish?
No. Yes, I can. Yeah. Let's cue the fish. Phil, we'll cue the fish.
I came down to Cornwall early one year. We made the guitar and me. To earn a fortune, lead an open air life, rocking on the rolling sea. We pulled the tosher and we got some gear, steamed off to the fishing grounds. We fished all day and we fished all night, but there were no fish to be found. So now you hear me singing this song, singing it every day. And it all worked out, we just couldn't go wrong, but the fish didn't sing it that way. Once we came in to get some grub, we meant to go out straight away. We popped in the mission for a cup of tea, where we got led astray. While we heard tales of bygone days, tales both long and tall. The tide went out and left our boat hanging from the harbour wall. So now you hear me singing this song, singing to you any old day. And it all worked out, we just couldn't go wrong, but the fish didn't see it that way. We thought we'd do as the big boats do, so we bought some baskets of lines, made up some dams, some weights and floats, tried them several times. Then off we went, baited up, shot the lot away. Down went the lines, down went the floats, and they haven't been seen to this day. So now you hear me singing this song, singing it every day. And it all worked out, we just couldn't go wrong, but the fish didn't see it that way. My mate got married and I was left alone to rock on the rolling sea. You work the tide, you'll be alright, this old salt said to me. Well, I worked out the tides, I got 'em worked right, now I couldn't fail. So I was going out, the other boats were coming in, loaded down right up to the rail. So now you hear me singing this song, singing to you any old day. And it all worked out, we just couldn't go wrong, but the fish didn't sing it that way. Now after struggling for a year or two, I didn't do so bad. I caught some fish, caught some coals, and some prosperous times I had. My boat's now pulled up on the bar, I've hauled my boots ashore. I've walked with a wife and the price of fish, I'm gonna have to go to sea once more. And soon you'll hear me singing this song, singing it every day. Got it all worked out, I just can't go wrong if the fish would only see it my way.
I was born and brought up in London, North London, Edmonton, or as my mother used to say, Palmer's Green, which was the posh part of Edmonton. Yeah.
So what was your mum like? Quite an influence on your life?
She was great. I mean, mums are, aren't they? But I was an only child, and she did cherish me a bit. And she used to love to sing. And she used to sing just about anything. And she used to like to sing harmony. So she used to try and get me to sing so that she could sing harmony. And I think that's probably where I got a lot of my musical inspiration from, my musical education from. So I don't read music, nor did she. But she used to play the piano. She had this ability to convert whatever she heard into tonic solfa. You know, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do. And she would hear it on the radio, and she would go straight over to the piano and play it. So there's all these bits of tonic solfa written down all over the place. And she used to collect words to songs. There was a time when newspapers and magazines used to publish words to songs, and she used to cut them all out. I've got loads and loads of cuttings, and also I've got the News Chronicle, which was an old newspaper.
Oh, I used to love that.
Yeah. Well, they published a songbook, hardback songbook, quite thick, and she loved that. You trip over songbooks in one day, but she wouldn't sing publicly. She would sing with a group. When at Christmas times we would have a big sing around the piano, and all the family get together, and she would sing. She would sing anything, but on her own she wouldn't do a solo. Oh dear. I think she was very shy. In fact, I was too. I got that from her.
I had noticed that.
I wouldn't get up on the stage until, well, I suppose I was in my mid-20s before I would dare get up on the stage. I mean, right from a kid, if I was pointed out, I would go bright red from head to around my neck. It's really start to sweat, you know.
There's another thing about that, because you're a lousy teacher, because I was in my mid-40s before I dare get on stage.
Well, there you are. But I think that's probably why I'm so honest. If I told a lie, I would go right red.
So presumably, you were. Where did most of your early songs? Where did your musical taste?
Well, it was the radio, or the wireless as it was then. I mean, we had no television or anything. I didn't even have a phone. But we used to listen to the wireless. The radio, there was two-way family favourites and Housewife's Choice, and all these programmes. And
the front rows just dissolved into nostalgia.
yeah, a lot of these places, a lot of these things stuck in my mind. There was Pee Wee Hunt and 12th Street Rag, which was a jazz piece. That was the first piece of jazz that I ever heard. I thought that was wonderful. I got to the point where I could whistle every part, all the parts of the trombone, the clarinet. I think I had trouble with the piano. But, there was Burl Ives. He appeared regularly, and he was influential on all young folk singers, because Burl Ives' songbook, he produced a songbook. The Weavers had a great influence on me. I was knocked out by the Weavers.
That was Pete Seeger's band.
Pete Seeger's group, yeah. Irene Goodnight, Wim Away, So Long It's Been Good to Know You. There was a lady, an Irish lady called Delia Murphy, singing The Spinning Wheel, and If I Were a Blackbird, in a broad Irish accent. All these things eventually turned out to be folk songs, because the word folk wasn't really, although there was a folk song collector back in the 18th century, late 18th century, the word folk wasn't in the vernacular, yeah. And it became, you know, when the folk clubs came along, that's when folk took off. And I suddenly realised all these things that I used to listen to were really folk, which was quite an eye-opener.
So what were your school days like? Were you doing music at school or not?
No. No, straight over school. Yeah, I managed to keep my nose clean, but that was just about all. But,
so then what was it?
Well, I think
into engineering.
I went. I got a job as an engineer, as an engineering apprentice, and
without indentures.
Without indentures. Yeah, verbal apprenticeship it was called, not worth the paper it was written on. I was working on a machine one day. They used to have the radio on quite loud, and there was quite often breaks in transmission, and they would just stick on a piece of music. And one day this piece of music came on which stunned me completely, and I had to, it was jazz, I had to write to the BBC to find out what it was, and it turned out to be Louis Armstrong's Hot 5 and Willie the Weeper. And it was an instrument, and many, many years later I found words to it, which you may have heard earlier. So, I mean, that got me into going to jazz clubs, and in jazz clubs, there was, the interval was usually taken over by perhaps the guitarist, who happened to be Lolly Donegan, and they would
They used to call them breakouts, didn't they?
Yeah,
They
yeah.
used to have intervals, and
Yeah.
they used to let people in the band
Yeah.
do
their
solo
own thing, yeah.
their own bit.
Chris Barber used to play the bass, Lolly Donegan was on his guitar, put the banjo down, and that turned out to be skiffle. Lolly Donegan actually produced a single, I think it was a single, must have been a single, of Rock Island 9. He went and recorded it, and he collected his £25 and off he went. And that's all we got. And that's the way it was done in them days, you know, pay me the money and go. And that's 25 quid's worth, and that was a hit record.
And I think his Donegan's first solo gig was at the Albert Hall, wasn't it? You know that story?
No.
Apparently, absolute huge audience.
Yeah.
And it was because somebody cancelled them. And
Oh,
Chris
right,
Barber said,
yeah.
well, I've got a chap in my band that can do that for you.
Yeah.
I don't know however many the Albert Hall takes, but
Yeah.
that's the audience apparently.
Yeah.
So we'll come on for the other go.
But skiffle was so influential, you know, so many people, 3 chords, and you were away. And I worked with a fellow who played the guitars, quite a mean guitarist, and I said I want to learn to play the guitar, like Lolly Donegan. And he said, well, I'll teach you, but you've got to start off with a ukulele. He said, if you get on with the ukulele, I'll teach you to play the guitar. So I got a ukulele, and I got on quite well with it, and he said, I'll show you, you know, the chords, all the chords you need to know. And I did. I started copying Lolly Donegan, and I used to sing at parties and things like that. I mean, I wouldn't get up on stage at that stage, no. But sit quietly in the corner and sing. I didn't know anything about skiffle until I was in the forces, and I was out in Cyprus, and a new bloke, a new recruit came out, and he was new squaddy, and he brought a guitar, and he was playing, and everyone sort of, wow, what's this? He said, it's skiffle, man. And it was all this thing had started over in London while I was out in Cyprus. So when I got back, then I started to look out and sort of find all these things. And yeah.
And this was really, really at the kind of start of the English folk revival boom, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Clubs were springing up all over the place.
Yeah.
After,
Yeah.
that skiffle was quite a short period, really.
It was
right?
really,
Wasn't it?
yeah.
Wasn't it?
Yeah, well, it's very
5 or 6
short-lived.
years.
It's a very shallow sort of music, but it's enough to get you going. I mean, it was all American stuff, except Ewan McCall produced a book of skiffle songs, and they were all Scottish songs. Jumping in on the skiffle bandwagon, yeah. But no, it was fairly. I mean, it's very, very, very American, and I mean, I used to listening to Rambling Jack Elliott. I used to do as best I could, try to copy it really, and that was where everyone got started really, by copying somebody, and it all sort of developed from there really. A bloke said, "Oh, I got a friend who's starting a skiffle group. Would you be interested?" I said, "Yeah, sure." And I went along to see him, and he said, "Yeah, come to our first rehearsal." Went to the first rehearsal, and he introduced me to the bass player, got a string bass, T-chest bass, and banjo player, and he was a drummer himself, did play the washboard. And I said, great, who's the singer? And I said, you are. I said, well, I don't know about it. But no one else would sing, so you know, I got thrown into the deep end. We did a few gigs here and there, and then he said, oh, I've got us a booking at the Skiffle Cellar. I said, what? I'm not going to, that's where all the professionals play. I'm not going down there. And that was really the end of the group, really. But no, I used to get up at parties and various events, and I would be happy singing. I still used to get very nervous, and I still used to go red at times.
You sound like very, very settled in your life up there, and huge music career building up in front of you, and you suddenly decided to go to Cornish. How did that happen?
I wouldn't have left London for the world until I was in my mid-20s, when I was working for Remington Rand, the electric shaver people. That's where I grew this. In fact, they offered me money to have it shaved off in public for publicity, but they didn't offer me enough. So it stayed there. And no, I was there, and there was a dispute. There was a bit of a dispute about work practices and one thing and another, and I sided with the wrong side, and we all got the sack. And after, I mean, it was one of these situations where Remington's was my social life as well as work life, and everything just sort of fell apart, and I was very disillusioned with London at that time. And this mate of mine said, let's go down to Cornwall fishing. I'd never been to Cornwall before. I didn't know anything about fishing, but it sounded great.
Did he?
Yes, he'd been down. He'd got a friend already down there. He'd met a friend in the when he was in the RAF, and his RAF friend was down here fishing, and he'd come down and spent the season down here fishing. And he said, it's a great life. You know, you can earn a fortune in the summer, do what you like in the winter. So he convinced me. He convinced another fellow, and we planned this trip down. We came down, went over to Mousehole and bought a boat. Went back up to London, and this friend of ours down here said, I'll let you know when the mackerel come in, and then you can come in and sort of do your bit. One of the third person dropped out, so there was just the two of us came down, and what we didn't know about fishing, we, the first year, the pair of us, the boat, earned £52. Which was shared between the two of us, plus all the expenses in the boat. So
that was an awful lot of money.
Well, it was okay. It was enough. And then when he got, he met up with a girl before he was about to come down here, and he decided he was going to get married. So he went back up to London and got married. So I was left down here with the boat. But I must say that the fishermen of Newlyn were extremely kind and helpful, and I mean, there was one fella, you may have heard of the Ocean Pride, which has just gone back home to Newlyn. The skipper of that said, you know, in the mission, everyone goes in the mission, sitting in the mission. He said, what do you come up for a cup of tea, boy? And he lived just up the road, and I said, oh, that'd be nice, thank you. And we went up for a cup of tea. And it was in the depths of winter. And I was living in a chalet at just between Crowlers and Langford, and it was a little wooden hut virtually. And I went up to this bloke's house, and there was this lovely roaring fire. Oh, fantastic! And then he said, "Well, while you're here, you might as well stop for a bite to eat." And then a plate full of food. I didn't want to leave there. But that's the sort of attitude that they had. I was well looked after. I can remember running into trouble we'd gone round the corner out to round the back of the longships. We were out by the Brisons, and we were coming back, and this the sea parts. You know, when the tide comes across from America, it goes two ways, either side up the channel, either channel, and where that separates, you get this incredible turbulence of water. I mean, you usually, when the waves are coming, you turn into the waves and you're safe. But these waves were coming from everywhere, and there was a couple of boats pulled in. One of them was the Shamrock. It was down here with a load of divers. Pulled in and waited to make sure that I got through that lot all right, which was wonderful. Got towed in a couple of times, but
So
yeah.
this is the period you met Talman, wasn't it then, presumably?
Well, it was just, yeah, it was around about that time I got friendly with Tim Knight, and Tim Knight was part of Ricky Barnes and the Layabouts, and and they had a
You had main groups in there.
they had a tame country and western singer, I'm not so tame actually. Tell man who used to sing country and western stuff, and he used to do interview spots, and they introduced me to him, and he was keen to learn a few songs, so we worked together, and we used to go out as John and Tell. And
I think we might have a track actually.
yeah,
of
right, yes, yeah.
Stand by to you, where the dangers are double and the pleasures are few, where the rain never falls and the sun never shines. It's as dark as a dungeon way down in the mine. There's many a man that I've known in my day, who's rejoiced to labor his own life away.
That's me, that one.
But I can't credit money into a dirty swine. A man gets a lust for the lure on the mind.
Folk clubs in the early days never had any amplification, so it was all acoustic. You had to project. No two ways about it. You really had to project, you know, which helps.
So you basically come up to the time that I first saw you, and you know Ian Todd starting his Outhouse, and
Just before that, let me say that working with Tell, you never quite know where you were. You always had to get ready to run. We did.
Why was
We did a few. Our first booking was at the Barn Club in Penzance, and I mean we were both a little bit nervous, but I could see Tell every time I looked at him. He got a glass, and he was. And I thought he's getting drunk. I'm not going on the stage with him sober if he's drunk. So I started too, and we got up on the stage. We whipped through everything so fast. But I mean we survived. But we did a thing in Marazion, and it was a sort of a big Marazion, big open day. They got a big stage, and we got speakers and microphones and all sorts of things going on all over Marazion. And we were singing, and there's a couple of little kids in the front started taking the piss, and take no notice, just carry on. Tell, eventually, he turned up, he leaned over to the mic and he whispered, "If you don't fucking shut up, I'll ram this way." This is broadcast all over. That was Tell for you. Well, I did know the area because the friend that I came down with was from Pendine, but and they said yeah, every night of the week. Blimey. And Tell, married man, got a couple of kids and everything. I mean, he didn't want to commit himself. He was a working man, like building. He didn't want to commit himself, but I mean, to me, it was a golden opportunity to take up fish, give up fishing and go working on doing what I always wanted to do, secret ambition, to become a professional folk singer. But we went out there for the, I mean, given their due, they opened up earlier. I mean, it turned out that they originally wanted to be a cabaret club because they got Mel and Miles coming down, the friends of theirs. They'd got them booked, but they were both teachers, so they couldn't come down other than during the school holidays, and they wanted to get it up and running. So we went along there, and the first couple of nights we sat there and played to the odd family that dropped in. I mean, we were singing a song, we would chat to them, or ask them where they come from, and so on and so forth. But
I always remember Mel and Miles. They
yeah.
were very fond of the calypsos, weren't they?
That's right. That's right.
And Ons.
Well, they came down, and by the time they came down, it was a fully fledged folk club. And Ian said, you know, you better go out and learn a few folk songs because it's a folk club. So they spent ages in the library going through all these books. Yeah.
And of course you had Des Hannigan there.
Des Hannigan.
And one of the
Dropped in, yeah. I mean, he'd just come down from Scotland, and he got up and said, there were so many. Michael Chapman did the same thing. Didn't want to pay.
He was a little bit later, wasn't he?
Yeah, couldn't afford to pay. But if I can get up and do a few songs, it was that.
Ian had a rule, didn't he, that for floor singers, that or people that came in, that it was 2 songs and you're off. Unless you're any good.
Yeah.
Was that how it worked?
Well, it was left to me. Actually, I mean, Ian didn't really know much about folk
No.
and folk music and folk clubs, and I come down this wealth of experience doing the clubs all around London. So he more or less gave me a free hand. So I used to have to do all the introductions and everything. And Alex got this letter from Ian Todd, and he wouldn't give it to us because we were doing a radio broadcast, and he wouldn't give it to us until the end of the broadcast. And we opened it up and said, "I'm very sorry to inform you, but I'm closing the club." You know, and that was a devastating blow.
Mm.
Alex got wind of what was in the letter somehow. Probably steamed it over us. But
we should perhaps go back a bit actually to Brenda.
Yeah.
And,
well,
I remember first seeing Brenda literally singing from the floor.
Oh yeah.
And then
well,
you invited her up on the stage.
That's right. She used to get up on stage. She started singing, and you suddenly get this ethereal harmony coming out from the audience somewhere. And you used to try and work out where on earth is that coming from. Eventually pinpointed it to Brenda. And I said, "Come on up and join us." You know, "Oh no." And eventually we got to get up on the stage and sing, and that was more or less the start of her folk career.
It was.
And that was the start of Michael Chapman's folk career, because he went on for 50 years. He was down there on his 50th anniversary.
Yeah.
And that was down at the Count House. He'd been coming down ever since, and he did a couple of nights out there.
Who the other? I mean, people I remember down in the Count House. Johnny Silver. Come down a lot.
Yeah, Johnny Silver had got this very powerful voice. Great singer. Ended up in Norway. Died of cancer.
Did he?
Mm.
Yeah.
He was a PT instructor in the forces.
What was he?
Yeah. I first saw him up in Plymouth with what's it, the jazz band that used to have a singer with a megaphone. Temperance Seven. He was singing with the Temperance Seven, or along with the Temperance Seven. Yeah. But he was great. Alex Campbell come along.
Yeah.
Jerry Loughlin.
Yeah.
Well,
Jerry did sing at the Count House.
Oh
I wasn't sure whether I remembered.
Jerry Loughlin was the king down here at one time. I mean, he was really good. My wife couldn't stand him.
No, well, I used to think had a pretty big ego on him, but a lot of it was just showmanship, wasn't it?
He did, yeah. He was a bit of a faker. He was certainly a bit of a faker. But he used a lovely guitar style, and he used to love to work an audience. You could see him working an audience. In fact, he got the whole audience down at the Cow House in the height of summer singing "I'm Dreaming of a White Christmas." And we were a duo. We used to sing together. She would sing with me when I sing harmony, and I would sing harmony with her. So we worked together. But she, what can I say? We went on tour. We went on tour together quite often. Alex Addison, he came down. There's another story. Yeah. Alex Addison. Ian used to put these adverts in the paper, the Melody Maker, asking people if they would like to come down and do a week there. Send a tape. And Ian said, "Listen to this. What do you think of this?" And he played me this tape. And I couldn't understand a word of what was going on because Alex got a quite strong Scottish accent. But the laughter there was just people's laughter, so much laughter. I thought, well, he's got to be good if he makes people laugh that much. So they booked him, and that was a long association there with Cornwall. And he lured Brenda and I up to the East Coast to do various clubs in the East Coast. And it was up there that we got this message.
Should we hear a little bit of Brenda and you singing?
It's Wild Mountain Time.
Oh, well, let's hear that.
Do you want to hear that?
Yeah, because this song is wherever you go. I mean, these days for my music, what I do is when I go on holiday and put myself on tour around all the folk sessions I can find in the country. And it doesn't matter where you go, you can bet your life in a folk session. This song is always going to be sung somewhere.
This is John and Des Handel.
And this is John and Des Handel.
The summer's in prime, and the buds are richly blooming, and the wild mountain thyme all around us is the beaming. Away go, as they go, and they all go.
Before I go, let me just mention the falcon. When we were talking about Tim Knight, and there was a little group of us used to go around together. That was Chris Tyler, Tim Knight, Lee, and Mike Richards, and we used to knock around together. He had the car, so we used to go and drink in the ship. And we went over to the ship one day and one evening, and there between Mousel Harbour and Mousel, the Mousel Island and the harbour, was this ghost-like black boat sails down, laying anchor. I mean, he should never have been laying anchor there, but he was. And we went into the ship and said, what's going on with the boat? And we found out that the boat had come all the way down from Scotland. Bloke had brought it. It's a 100-foot-long ex-Fleetwood pilot cutter, and he'd sailed it down from Scotland all on his own. And he was looking for a crew. And we all said, shall we? And a couple of them said, yeah, Tim was going, Chris Tyler was going, and they said, what about you? And I knew that Mike had just met Maureen, and I knew that he wouldn't go, so I said, well, I'll go if Mike goes. And he said yes. So we crewed on board the Falcon, which was quite an experience actually. It was moored in Penzance Harbour, And he kept on saying, "Are we going to go, George?" You know, so we say, "Well, we'll have a look at the weather tomorrow." And so tomorrow, we're sort of, "Are we going to go? Are we going to go?" No. And we kept on having these farewell parties because any minute we're going to be gone. But eventually, when we did go, we didn't get more than 100 miles off and lost the mainmast. And the mainmast was whipping around something rotten because there was this thing called rattlings. You put new ropes on the dead eyes, and the stopper knots being new rope pulled tighter and tighter and tighter. Eventually, they pulled through these dead eyes, and that left all the stays of the mainmast free. So the mainmast was flapping about all over the place, and it was, you know, I thought, well, it's never going to go because we hit this storm. But eventually it did go over the side, and we limped back to the harbour. So that was rather sad.
Did you ever write a song about that?
No, I didn't. A lovely photograph. We've got a lovely photograph of all of us there. There was Mike and Toni Carr, Mike and Toni Hull, who was on board. David McGibney. He was going as far as Gibraltar, and then he was coming back. But no, we were going to go out to the Bahamas and earn a fortune hiring the boat out, but it didn't materialise.
You could have tried your hand singing
It was a great place there, because all sorts of people came on board then. This Disney came on board.
Yeah.
Played a bit. Yeah, it was good. Yeah, but eventually the boat went up to Falmouth, and eventually somebody bought it, an American family bought it with a young child, and they put out on Plymouth Sound, and there was a warning of a gale coming. They went out, they were tannoying everybody, shouting everybody to come in, but they wouldn't come in, and it ended up bottom of the sea, and the child got drowned. So that was very sad. But they said that it was rotten, so just as well we didn't go. I think.
Shall we hear a little bit of you and Brenda from Pasties and Trees?
Okay, yeah.
Tell us more about the tour. Yeah.
I dreamed a dream the other night, the strangest dream of all. I dreamed I saw a great big man behind the garden wall, and he said, "Little eyes, I love you, little eyes, I love you, love you in the springtime and the fall. Little eyes, I love you, little eyes, I love you, I love you best of all." He came around to my backyard to see my turtle down. Oh, tell me, honey, tell me true, who is the one you love? And she said, "Little eyes, I love you, little eyes, I love you, I love you in the springtime and the fall. Little eyes, I love you, little eyes, I love you, I love you best of all." I took my honey home last night, beneath the shedding pine. I put my arms around her waist and pressed her lips to mine. And she said, "Little eyes, I love you, little eyes, I love you, I love you in the springtime and the fall. Little eyes, I love you, little eyes, I love you, I love you best of all. Little eyes, I love you, little eyes, I love you in the springtime and the fall. Little eyes, I love you, little eyes, I love you, I
Mr. and Mississippi, bound to be mine. On the B-side was that. Couldn't believe it. And when I came down here, there was people singing it. Apparently they were over here during the war singing to the American forces, and it got picked up. Well, we're not sure whether they learnt it from here or whether they brought it over there and the people in Cornwall learnt it from them, but there you are.
It happens, didn't it?
Yeah.
The Corries nicked one of Sir George's songs, didn't they? The Grey Funnel Line.
Right.
They
Yeah.
nicked it and recorded it as the Grand Boner Line. And that must have purely been osmosis. Hearing it and getting the idea and going.
Yeah, no, there was a lot of that going around in the early days. I mean, you go back to the early jazz, W.C. Handy's Father of the Blues. The only reason why he's Father of the Blues is because he used to be able to write music, and he could write, he could listen to all these people. He would write it, he would copyright it. I mean, they didn't know anything about copyright or anything like that, so he took advantage of it, really. So
moving on a bit, when you the period I mean, how did you come to sort of separate from Brenda? Different directions?
She was very ambitious.
Yeah.
I couldn't keep up with it. Yeah, she wanted to do this, she wanted to do that, she wanted to go here, she wanted to go there, and
of course, French language as well.
Yeah, well, I'd got married by then, and we had a dog. I hate to believe my dog. No, I thought, well, I haven't moved to Cornwall really to spend all this time gallivanting all over the place. But so we sort of drifted apart, really.
And then you had other things.
Yeah, well,
Cottage, of course, had got going.
I used to go around clubs on my own. Alex Addison again asked me. He did a tour with Hold Down a Chord, John Pierce, guitarist, and he toured Germany. And when John Pierce's girlfriend got a driving licence, he didn't want Alex anymore. And Alex had got all these addresses and met all these people. And he said, "Would you come with me on tour?" So yeah, great. So we went over to Holland several times and to Germany, and a wonderful time. It was quite unusual. I mean, Germany, never realised how big Germany was, and we had an agent that didn't know how big Germany was either. We were travelling for miles, but it was a great experience. The first time I sung in Germany, the first club we went to, there was a girl from Mousel. I couldn't believe it. But yeah, that was great. And there was two scenes in Germany. There was the forces scene. You could sign up and go to all the forces clubs. But there was a load of drunken louts, really. Or there was the folk clubs, and they'd got folk clubs over there. And although a lot of them never spoke English, they just loved it. And we did very well. We did get booked one night at an Irish night. I don't know, I suppose they thought we might be Irish, New Ireland. And there was a German fella got up and sung "She Moved Through the Air." Beautiful. I went up to congratulate him because it sounded so great. I went up to congratulate him, and he said, couldn't speak a word of English, but he learnt it phonetically, and it was incredible. You were talking about Alex Campbell.
Yeah.
There was another fellow. I mean, he was a great character. He also went to Denmark and died. But
he was pretty heavily involved with Peggy and Pete and Ewan Cole.
He married Peggy Seeger.
That's right. There's a sort of marriage of convenience.
A marriage of convenience, and it broke his heart. Because he really loved her. And she only married him because she wanted to marry Ewan McCall, and Ewan McCall was married at the time, which was very sad. But he wrote some really, not many songs, but he wrote so long.
A little bit of the thing when you talk sort of thinking about Peggy Seeger and Ewan McCall and Ewan McCall stuff. There was this strange sort of period in folk music. You still get resonance of it. There was sort of a folk police period where they tried to put rules down for their clubs.
The Singers Club, yeah.
Singers
yeah.
Club. Did you ever perform at the Singers Club? Or?
No, but I did go along. They used to run a club at Princess Louise in High Holborn, and I did go along to that club because Rambling Jack Elliott was there.
Yes.
But Ewan McCall was an avid communist, and he was never slow at letting people know about it. And he sang. He was telling the audience, he sang to the audience, all this American rubbish, you shouldn't be singing this here. Jack Elliott, he was saying, you shouldn't be singing this American rubbish, you should be singing from your own, you know, your own area, you should be doing your own stuff. And he said, he sat down and he sung what he called a bothy ballad, which was a Scottish, I think they were shepherds, or whatever they were. And he used to sit down, he'd turn his chair the wrong way round, sit down, shut his eyes, and he'd go off in a trance virtually and sing in this very strong Scottish accent. And
He came from Salford.
yeah, yeah, his name was Jimmy Miller actually. But he'd adopted this Scottish persona, and he was singing this very strong Scottish accent. And I suddenly looked around, I couldn't understand a word of it, but I suddenly looked around there and there was this deathly silence. Everybody was listening to him like it was really something special. And suddenly I felt the giggles coming. I thought, I'm going to get slaughtered if I don't get it. So I really had to bite my tongue to get through that. But I got to know Peggy Seeger quite well because I went along, she used to give guitar lessons at the Workers' Music Association. She'd get a group of people, 4, 5, 6 people, paying £5 bob an hour, and you would have an hour's lesson. And it was Robin Hall and Jimmy McGregor, he was there, and he said to Peggy Seeger, he said, could you show me the accompaniment for She Moves Through the Fair? And Peggy said, I could, but I won't. She said, that song is just so beautiful, it stands alone, you don't need any accompaniment whatsoever. In fact, any accompaniment would detract from the song. And I thought, you know, well, I'll play guitar, you know, didn't sort of go along with this. But years and years later, I found the beauty of singing unaccompanied, which is terrifying to start with because, you know, you've got this comfort around here, you can do all sorts of things with that and impress people. But when you're singing on your own, the silences between the words and the verses and things like that are definitely, you know, you get quite nervous. I did, but eventually I just love unaccompanied singing, and those pauses can be very, very impressive. In fact, one of the people who expel that, who show that so well was Sean Cannon. There was a programme on the radio of the Irish clubs up in London, and the presenter was saying that this scruffy fella got up on stage with a long beard, and he started singing. He said the whole pub went stone quiet. Listen to this voice, this lovely, almost a frail voice, but it wasn't frail by any means. It was quite strong, but it sounded frail, and he got this ability to hold an audience, and they would stay quite quiet, which you know, I like that.
So you've got a few experts that presumably in your days when, because after the Count House closed, Brenda started Pipers, didn't she?
Brenda, when we got that letter, I went on up to Hull to see Mike Chapman. I didn't want to come home.
We haven't actually got there, but for me that was marvellous because it was your full set in those days, really before, you know, before she moved onto the Cornish bus, and that was, I think that was just discovered that somebody had actually taped all this stuff and ran down the tapes and got that recorded.
There's quite a bit of stuff around, and Mick McCready's been doing a lot of recording, getting a lot of people sending in tapes, and he's cleaning up and recording the stuff. In fact, he gave me a CD of stuff that he'd made of me, and I listened to that and I think, it can't be me, am I that good? A lot of it.
You know you are if you can sing that when you hear your own
well,
stuff.
I try to play it now, but I've forgotten the words, I've forgotten the chords. It's because I stopped playing, which was a mistake.
The great difficulty with you, John, is that your stories are so fascinating that time rolls on. And I have sort of like half a dozen pages here from the book of 6,745 pages of your life. And we perhaps need to move on to really the folk cottage and which was a club that. Started, about the same time as Piper's, a little bit after, perhaps?
John Sleep and John Hayday came down to the Count House, and they were so impressed that they decided they were going to go back home and start a club of their own. And they got a club. The film of the folk cottage there. You see a young Willoughby who owned the folk cottage, he owned the farm, and they opened this. It was an old cottage, and they spent ages converting it and tidying it up. And,
but they never managed to do much with the toilets.
No, there were no toilets. There was an Elson across the yard, which no one dare go near.
but in the folk cottage, you then really came across, I mean, obviously you come across most of these guys before, but a huge amount of people went through that, people like Ralph McTell.
Yeah.
I mean, Ralph McTell, I mean, Brenda always thought that somehow Ralph was her son, didn't she?
She used to have these quiet love affairs with me.
And I think Mike Chapman probably also performed at the folk cottage.
He did.
Jerry Lochran certainly.
Yeah, he was on the film.
And one could also mention there was another club.
Famous Jug Band.
Famous Jug Band. Which did Jill Johnson?
Famous Jug Band.
She joined them, didn't she?
Yeah.
So,
Henry the Jug.
As we said, was Roger Taylor's girlfriend.
Clive Palmer, Pete Berriman.
Yeah.
Fabulous, and we heard earlier Jill singing
A Leaf Must Fall.
A Leaf Must Fall. Beautiful song, yeah.
Which you did on
rendition.
your album, didn't you? Did a version of A Leaf Must Fall.
Yeah. That is one of my favourites. That record that they made, the Famous Jug Band, the first one. Yeah.
Right.
But it was a great club, and also what made it so good were photographs, all the photographs of the people on stage. In the background was this naked lady, this great big painting of in black, a silhouette of a naked lady, and that shows up in just about every photograph people took at the stage, which was nice. It's not there anymore. In fact, we've made contact with the people that live there now. And they were quite surprised. They didn't know it had been a folk club. They didn't know anything about that. And they took us around, showed us around. It's £1 million worth of property now, I think. And they were so impressed that they hosted the reunion. Yeah. They hosted a folk cottage reunion there for 2 years running, which was nice.
which was about the first time I'd seen you since chatting to you quite by chance when I stumbled across the fact that you had a leather stall in
the
Mannier
market.
Market.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Well,
so
in
addition to the folk singing, you were into leathercraft.
yeah, I got into leathercraft through, I mean, again, stayed with somebody who made leather knee pads for people who were on their knees, mainly thatchers and people like that. And he gave me some leather, and I thought, oh, I'm interested in this. Got down the library, get a book out, and started making leathercraft, and I got hooked on it. So I ended up with the stall in the market, and that led me on. I went on up to did a folk festival at Poynton, and while I was up there, there was this bloke on stage. I was told he was 62 at the time, which was quite a bit older than me at the time, and he danced, clog danced, and it was a dream. He was just floating, I mean, incredible. And I thought, well, if he can do that at 62, I'm going to have a go at that. So I came back down to Cornwall, sold out a pair of clogs, and I started clog dancing, because there was a group of like-minded people who wanted to clog dance too. We formed the clog dancers, the Carnkai cloggers, and eventually I ended up having to make my own clogs. Of course, you couldn't really get them down here, so I ended up sort of making clogs, and that was another adventure. But the Carnkai cloggers split, as groups do. There's differences of opinion, and we formed the Truro Dandy Clog, and we used to go busking, dancing out in the streets. We did
Can I ask what age you were when you started?
Clog dancing.
Clog dancing, yeah.
How old was I?
Must have been in your late 30s.
Late 30s. Oh, look, sure, I must have been older than that, was I? Anyway,
I don't
yeah.
think we had the kids when you started.
We didn't have the kids. We didn't have the kids.
Carver was born in 1980.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was young. But anyway,
Much 40s.
yeah, we got to know Sam Sherry, unbeknown to me, had been dancing all his life. His father, he was part of the Sherry brothers, and there was 4 brothers and 3 sisters, and they were the Sheridas. The father made them all learn to dance at a very early age, and he used to teach them to do the splits. The way he used to do it, he said, spread your legs out, and then he would go, vomp. He could do, Sam Sherry could do the splits by doing from one, and going from that position right up to the splits, just incredible. But he'd been dancing all his life, and we tried to catch up with him. But he came down and did a couple of guitar clog workshops down here, and taught us various routines and things. It was really good.
So we have mentioned that because, of course, this is what tonight is all about. Really, is the Lullaby Trust, and you have this tragedy, didn't you, where you lost your
Radio
your
Cornwall.
son.
Oh, I forgot about the Radio Cornwall.
Oh yeah, well yeah.
Fish on Folk.
Yes, you
I
have
was
a
doing that
broadcasting career as
for
well.
18 years, yeah.
Yeah.
And this is before I was part of Fish on Folk, before I was part of Radio Cornwall. They decided they was going to run a folk session at Canadian Country Club. Shirley was there. Shirley was the first person that I met when I came in. It was at the country club that when we got there we found that our son was not breathing, and there was a bit of a panic. Luckily there was an ambulance just gone by the road, and they came straight in and tried to resurrect him.
Resuscitate.
What's the word?
Resuscitate.
Resuscitated.
Resuscitate.
And they failed. And,
Sadly.
so that was then. People say it must have been so terrible because it was so public, and it was broadcast next morning on the radio.
Yeah.
But to me, it was a great advantage because people knew. They didn't come up and say, "How's Merrick?" And then we have to go through all the story. They knew. A lot of people avoided me because they didn't want to speak about it. They didn't quite know how to handle it. But so if you do know someone who's greedy, don't ignore them. Go up and say, "I'm sorry." That's all you have to say. "I'm sorry to hear about it." But it was from that. I mean, we both, Carrie and I, were brought up non-religious. Well, I say no, that's wrong. You were brought up religious. I was brought up non-religious, so when it came to have a funeral, we didn't quite know what to do, but we went to the vicar and said, or went to the funeral director, and he put us in touch with the vicar that we knew actually, and he said he would do the ceremony and he would leave religion out. But we had the funeral, and it was after that I said, we must make sure that people can have a non-religious funeral if they want one. And when Cornish Humanist started, I made sure that was the first thing that that's what we must do. They said, right, go ahead and do it. So Lydia there, she'd done a few funerals beforehand, and she was my mentor. She took me the first place we went to. The woman said, "Oh, I want this hymn and I want that hymn," and she said, "What, in a non-religious funeral?" And in the end she said, "I don't think you're the right people for me." So we ended up empty-handed, as it were. But yeah, that was so. And I've been doing them ever since.
Indeed you have. From the humanist point of view.
Yeah.
Because obviously, through our lives, John and I have seen each other very, very little snaps and bites of, back in the Can House days, the odd chat in Truro Market, the reunion at the Folk Cottage, which Nick McCready, I was the first one, I missed the second one. I felt very privileged because I never actually went to the Folk Cottage.
You weren't the only one.
And there were two or three of us there that were kind of invited along. Mitchell was far enough for anybody that lived in Truro or Newquay, let alone St. Ives. But there was another club that you were, I can't remember how, I certainly saw you there, and I think you were involved setting up, which was Chrissy Quayle's Folk Club.
Gurnet's
Head, the Mermaid Folk Club. Chrissy being seen as a lovely 17-year-old lass who used to wear incredibly thin clothes in the summer. And she should be known.
Mermaid of Zena.
Mermaid of Zena.
You never stop telling people that. When you introduce her as the Mermaid of Zena?
And Eric lived at Carn Cobber, and he was an author of books about books. Sort of esoteric thing you get in West Cornwall, isn't it? And had a fabulous collection. And when his first wife died, he married a family really from Japan. His second family was Japanese, and in a later career, as she moved on from the Mermaid of Zena, Chrissy went into rock and roll and was in a band called Metro Glider.
Saxophonist, wasn't she?
Yeah, she still is. I remember being asked to do a photo shoot for her band, and because Dad was in Japan, the band took over his house for a weekend for this photo shoot, which was great fun. But it rather fazed the drummer, who was out of work and living in a cold water flat in Plymouth, and was taken down. And his first experience of arriving in this fabulous house that Eric had was Chrissy saying, "What do you fancy? What do you fancy for supper?" And this lad saying, well, yeah, what's on offer? And she said, well, you can have fish if you like. And I said, yeah, okay, yeah, that sounds fine. And Chrissy nipped out to the pond in the garden where Eric used to have trout. So this guy didn't really understand what he got into, what the band was all about. And sort of poverty meets wealth. But one of the occasions then when I caught up with John was when he did Eric's funeral, which was a great gig.
That was quite incredible. Let me tell you about it. Chrissy said, "Oh, I want to get the vicar." Eric used to go down the pub and he used to have these great conversations with the vicar, and I want to get him to get up and say a few words. And the vicar came round and she was telling him, sort of, you great friends and all this sort of thing. Chrissy went out of the room and he said, I don't know what to do. I hated the man. He said we used to argue. He said he was a horrible man. And in the end, he agreed to do it. He got up on the stage, and I sort of said, let's have a few words from Eric's friend, the vicar. And he got up there, and he said, right, Eric, I've got you where I want you now. You can't say another word. It was quite incredible. Yeah, it was quite a mind you, even I used to drink. He used to have this program on Radio Cornish, antiquarian books. Is that right? Antiquarian, old books. And he used to talk about all these old books, but he used to arrive drunk. I mean, it was noticeable on air that he was drunk.
So, your last sort of, or your most recent venture into music really is choirs, wasn't it? Are you in choirs or?
I did join a choir for quite a while. It was a 39 Theatre used to come along and sing at the folk club when it was in folk cottage when it was in Truro, and they quite some time later I started singing. I started singing. Oh no, it was running a singing for pleasure course out at in Truro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Saw Toni.
And I went along to that and took my daughter because I thought I'd try and get my daughter to sing along, but I failed in that respect. But it was a good course, well done. And then people at the end of the course would say, where do we go from here? And
well, I think we've got a little surprise for you here,
really?
because I think Sue Farmer's here, isn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to come and give us a little demonstration of the sort of songs?
Sue ran this course,
Singing.
and various people suggested I open up a community choir, which she did. Asked me to help her run it.
Oh, Sue's shadow.
Susan.
What the prompter?
No. We did folk operas, didn't we, kind
We
of
did,
things?
we
Yeah, and John, this is one of the songs that John wrote. Well, the first one that we did, which was called Jack and Jenny, which was about Cornish emigration, wasn't it? And it's called The Cornish Miner. And Anne and I are part of a group called Women on the Verge. We carried on doing the folk operas after the choir, so we'd both left the choir by then. And so anyway, this is the Cornish Miner. I've grovelled underground around Giva.
I carved out a cut at the ground.
You can tell your cousin Jack that I nearly broke me back in a rough fall at Wheel Towns. I blasted at Bullers and Bellswidden,
And the Francis where the roof caved in.
if there's a hole underground, that's where I'll be found with the lead the copper and the tin. I've carried me crows to Cape Cornwall.
I laboured at the loads of Levant.
Down at East Wheel Rose, so the saying goes, the spirits of the dead still runs. I've shinned up the shafts of old Shepherd.
Heard the knockers knocking at Nangiers.
I did what I could at Wheel Unity Wood, though I had to walk for miles and miles. I was beguiled by the ghost of Garnamina.
I played in the band at Billerdown.
We had a good sing-song one Christmas at Ding Dong, but I was broke on Boxing Day at Blue Hills Mine. Had no chance to languish in wheel leisure.
I wandered round the wind and up Will Jane.
I came so close to death in the floods of Killyfred, when all the rivers overran with rain. Found foes as well as friends at Wheel Friendship.
I heard the miners moan at Medland Moor.
I left me pick and shovel when I ran from Great Wheel Level. Felt softer in the curves of Great Wheel Law. I trifled with the tailings at Tin Tang.
I passed me pasties round in Providence.
I got stuck in a stove while working in Wheel Hope. Lost one of me toes in the stands at East Wheel Rose. Came out feeling dizzy from the foul air at Wheel Busy. Drove the Widowmaker on the face down at Wheel Ager. Climbed so high and lofty in the galleries of Crofty. Courted a bow maiden in the sheds down at St. Albin. But now the mining's done, I must leave my family home and seek work on a far and distant shore.
Yay!
I don't think I ever managed to get through that song.
There's a lot of words in it.
That's one of yours.
Yeah.
Any idea how many songs you've written?
Not a lot.
Not a
No,
lot.
not a lot.
This stick to quality rather than...
Yeah. Well, my problem is that I don't play at home. I don't sit at home and play. That's more or less why I do all my practicing on the stage, and I can't sit down.
That was a trick you pick up from my channel.
Yeah, I can't sit down and sing at home, which is a bit of a shame, really. I feel I've got to the stage where I mean, my mother. I keep on referring back to my mother and the song she used to sing. I'd love to do all of her songs. Well, not all of them. I would be singing from now till the end of time, actually. But I'd love to sing the songs that she used to sing, that I used to hear her singing. Whether I should ever get around to doing that, I don't know.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've run a mere 10 minutes over. I mean, we could easily run 3 hours over with John. So the next part of the evening, John's going to stay around for a little bit to chat to whoever wants to chat to.
Have a cup of coffee.
I'll have a cup of coffee. You have a cup of coffee if anybody picked up on that message. Me too. And Phil is going to play some music and show some films.
Yeah, we'll have the films with sound.
Films
in
with
10-15 minutes.
Films
of
with
people
sound. So we're going to have a 15-minute break or so from this stage, and then we're on to some films and sounds for anybody who wants to stay and listen.
Thank you very much. I'm sure you'll all wish to join with me in showing our appreciation tonight for John for that wonderful.